Hi everyone, I'm here for your next literacy lesson, and today we are going to go on to a new language feature that we have done before, and that is going to be fronted adverbials. So let me start by sharing my screen, and we have got a warm-up to start us off this morning. We're going to be focusing on the idea of verbs today, so can you identify the verbs in this paragraph? Remember, a verb is an action word, a doing word. So pause the video and write down as many of the action words that you can spot, and then when you're ready to see the answer, you can come back and press play. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to write down as many as you can see. I'm going to quickly run through most of them. Hopefully I get to all of them. There's so many action words in this paragraph, and you can see if you got them right. So we've got Edward said nothing. He said nothing because he could not speak. He lay in his small bed. He stared up at the ceiling and listened to the sound of her breathing. We've also got her breath is going, entering and leaving her body, knowing that soon she would be asleep. Because Edward's eyes were painted on, he could not close them, and he was always awake. Having a look on our next little paragraph, we've got Aibileen put him into his bed. Instead of on his back, he could see through the crack. Oh, he could see through the cracks and out into the dark night. On clear nights, the stars shone, and their pinprick light comforted Edward. Often he stared at the stars until the dark finally gave way to dawn. So there's loads and loads of verbs. I don't even think I grabbed them all, but hopefully you've got some of them right, and you're feeling a bit confident about how to identify verbs in our piece of writing. So we're going to be looking at fronted adverbials today, which we've done loads of fronted adverbials for almost all of our writing this year, so we should be pretty confident with them. However, we're specifically looking at fronted adverbials that end in ing. So I've got a fronted adverbial on the screen in front of you that says, tumbling through the air, Edward managed to catch one last glimpse of Aibileen standing on the ship. So can you use that example to figure out what is a fronted adverbial? Why do we use it? And how is it being used in this particular sentence? Well, you can pause the video if you need a bit more time, but otherwise I'm going to give away the answer now. A fronted adverbial should give the reader more information, extra information about what is happening. Okay, it piques their interest, but also they're words and phrases at the start of a sentence used to describe the action that follows in the rest of the sentence. So we've got this idea of, that should be a pen, of tumbling. We can picture what's happening to him. He's spinning round and round in the air. And that tells me, it's describing the action that follows in the rest of the sentence. I know he's spinning around and round as he manages to catch one last glimpse of Aibileen standing on the ship. So let's have a look at some examples of sentences where the verb at the beginning tells me how it is happening. We've got tumbling through the air. You can picture him spinning round and round. We've got holding Edward by the ears. Now, I now can picture she's holding him by the ears. That's what she's doing as she marched outside and hauled him into the rubbish bin. So this fronted adverbial tells me how the next part of the sentence happens. Okay, having a look at the third one, we've got bouncing around in the back of the truck. So you can picture Edward bouncing, he's up and down. He wondered where he was heading. So I'm now able to say this fronted adverbial tells me how the next part of the sentence is being affected. And my last example, we've got turning red with rage. You can almost picture it when you're so angry. So now I know how he's feeling as he delivered a swift kick to Lucy's side that made her yelp in surprise. So all of my beginning verbs end in an ing because they're actions that are happening as like currently. All right, so he's tumbling. He didn't tumble past tense. He is tumbling currently. So it's an action that I know started in the past and is continuing now as he manages to catch a glimpse. Okay, so looking at these sentences though, you might have noticed that there's more than one verb in the sentence. I've got tumbling through the air, Edward managed to catch a glimpse. So I've highlighted now the second verb here. Edward managed to catch one last glimpse. She marched him outside. Edward wondered where he was heading, and he delivered a swift kick. Those are also action words. So our fronted adverbials today are going to be action words that tell us how it is happening, and then that is going to link to the second verb that tells me what is happening. Okay, so I know she is holding him by the ear, so I know how she's holding him as she marches him outside. I know how he is being affected. He is bouncing as he wonders. Okay, so I can see both what is happening in my second verb, the verb that's in the main clause, and how it's happening in my fronted adverbial. Okay, so we're going to use this information to write fronted adverbials using a verb ending in ing to describe how the main part of the sentence is happening. So we're going to go through some examples. I've got 3 sentences on the board that say the same thing in different ways, and we're going to try to figure out which is the most effective and does it make sense. So I'll read them out to you, and I want you to be thinking, 1, does it make sense? And 2, is it effective? Does it give me information about how it's happening? So the first one says, tumbling through the air, Edward hit the water. Does that make sense? My instinct is no, because it says tumbling through the air, Edward hit the water. Can those things happen at the same time? Not really, so it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to knock that one out first. Then we've got tumbling through the air, Edward wondered if he was going to die. Can you spot the 2 verbs? I've got tumbling and he wondered if he was going. All right, are those verbs too similar? No, I think they're okay. Right, let's check the last one just to make sure. The third one says, tumbling through the air, Edward somersaulted round and round. Let me find the verbs first. I've got tumbling and he is somersaulting. Does this make sense? It does. Is it effective? Not really, because tumbling and somersaulted are pretty much the same word. They mean the same thing. So it's not effective because I've repeated the same action, which means the most effective is B. Well done if you got that right. Tumbling through the air, Edward wondered if he was going to die. Let's have a look at another example. We've got A, feeling extremely nervous, the girl was very scared. B, feeling extremely nervous, the girl ate her dinner. Or C, feeling extremely nervous, the girl slowly stepped on stage. So let's go through them one at a time and see which one, if they make sense and whether it's effective. So identifying the verbs, here we go. I've got feeling and scared. Well, she was scared. Does that make sense? Yes. Is it effective? No. Why is it not effective? Because it's repeating the same action. We don't want to be repeating ourselves. Let's have a look at the next one. Feeling extremely nervous, the girl ate her dinner. Let me find the verbs. I've got she's feeling something and she is eating. So, does it make sense? Feeling extremely nervous, the girl ate dinner. Well, unless that dinner's been poisoned, it doesn't make sense to really be scared to eat your dinner. So it's not really an effective sentence. So I'd say that's absolutely not the right one. Let's read the last one. Feeling extremely nervous, the girl slowly stepped onto the stage. So finding the action word, I've got feeling, and the action in the main clause is she slowly stepped onto the stage. Does it make sense? Yes. Is it effective? Well, yes, because now I know as she's stepping on, I know how she is feeling about stepping on. So it adds valuable information to the sentence. Well done if you said C. All right, last turn. You can pause the video and try to work out the answer for yourself before I go through the answers if you'd like to. But let's read them now and see which is the most effective fronted adverbial. The first one says A, clutching Edward tightly, Abeline began to cry. B, clutching Edward tightly, Abeline waved goodbye to Pellegrina. Or C, clutching Edward tightly, he was relieved to see the last of Pellegrina. Right, you can pause the video, decide which one makes the most sense, and then unpause to see the answer. Okay, hopefully you've had a look through. The one that makes the most sense is B. Well done if you said B. The first one doesn't make sense because she's clutching Edward tightly and she began to cry. That doesn't really make sense because we already know that she's upset because she's clutching Edward tightly. So it's just not the most effective use of that fronted adverbial. And C doesn't make sense because clutching Edward, he was relieved. Is he clutching himself? Does not make sense. So no to that one. The most effective one is B. Well done if you said that. Okie dokie. So I've got some pictures that we're going to go through and try to come up with 2 verbs to describe what is happening. And we're going to use those to write a fronted adverbial ending in ing that describes how the main clause of the sentence. So the first thing I'm going to decide is what is happening in the picture. Well, Edward is being carried along by Bull. So we could say that he is watching the world go by, or he is staring around him, or he is traveling, or he traveled with Bull. And then I want to describe, well, how does he do that? Is he bouncing along as he's doing it? Is he staring around at the world? What is it? So I'm going to pick 2 verbs. I'm going to use bouncing, and I might do he watched. So my 2 verbs are bounce and watch, and I'm going to use those to write my sentence where the first part, the front adverbial, tells me how it's happening, and the second part tells me what is happening, and that I've not accidentally gotten 2 verbs that mean the same thing. So I might do bouncing along, and now so I've described how it's happening. I'm going to describe what is happening. Edward watched the world go by. So you could have come up with a load of different things. You could have reversed it. You could have said, watching the world go by, Edward bounced along in the backpack, for example. It doesn't matter as long as my 2 verbs are different from one another. I don't want to be repeating myself. I need my front adverbial to add value by describing how the action is happening. Let's have a go at another picture. I've got a picture of Edward Talaine sitting on a chair, staring out the window. So what verbs could we use? You can pause the video and say some action words that you can see in the picture. For example, sit. He is sitting. That is the action he is doing. What else can you come up with? When you're ready to go through the answers, come back and press play. All right, so we could say that he is sitting. He is watching. We could say he is, excuse my messy handwriting, staring. We might say he is thinking. He is contemplating. What is he doing that you could use to describe this picture? So I'm going to choose one of my verbs. I don't want to do watching and staring. Do you know why? Hopefully you've been able to say watching and staring are basically the same things. So I don't want to say staring out the window, Edward watched the world go by, because I've just repeated myself. I've not added any value. So maybe I'll say sitting. Oh, I don't need to put the ing. It's already there for me. Sit. And I could describe how he's sitting. Sitting upright. Oh my goodness, I'm struggling, aren't I? Upright. Right. Just about see the I in there. Sitting upright. Edward stared out of the window. You could have said sitting on the chair, or you could have reversed it. You could have said watching from the window, Edward sat morosely on his chair. Okay, so just remembering that our 2 verbs want to be different but add to each other. I now know how he was when he was staring out the window. Okay, so we're going to have a bit of a think task now. We're going to do a bit of a brainstorm, and we're going to try and think of words that describe what is happening in this video. What action can you see happening in each of these pictures? So, for example, Edward, we could say, is hanging. in this picture. He is hanging by his ears. Can you pause the video and for each picture come up with at least 3 words that describe what action is happening in this picture? How could you describe it? When you're ready to go through some answers with me, you can come back and press play. So pause the video now. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to write down some action words, some verbs to describe what is happening. Okay, so I'm just going to give up some suggestions. You could say that Edward is watching. You might describe how he is staring up at the night sky, or we could say that the pots are banging. So you can see the pots there that might be banging together. Okay, to describe what is happening. What about the second picture? What actions can we see? So we could say that they are standing. We could say that she is holding. We could see that she is smiling. Okay, so smiling brightly. Nellie held him off, so she's smiling. Oh, there's an I in the word smile. Having a look at our third picture now, can you describe what is happening? What action can we see? You might have come up with something like sinking, because he is sinking, or drift or drifting, or you could have even had falling. Now, all of these words are very similar, so I wouldn't want to use 2 of those words in the same sentence. So maybe I'm going to change falling to be something different. Okay, he looked back. You could say he is looking at the ship. He looked back at the ship. Just remembering that we don't want our verbs to be the same. We don't want to be repeating ourselves because we're not adding any value. And looking at the last picture, what action can we see? All right, well, they are sat. We could say they are sat down or sitting. Okay, we can see that Bull is staring. We could see that Edward is listening. So all of these will describe what actions that we could see. Of course, if you've come up with other words, well done, fantastic. We're going to now use those to write some independent sentences. So for each of those pictures, you need to write 2 different sentences describing what is happening with a fronted adverbial. So, for example, let me shift this up slightly so I've got a bit of space. For example, I could write a sentence. I can double check. I can always go back to this screen if I need it to check. You can always pause it here to read some of my verbs to see. So he is hanging and watching. So I could say something like hanging, making sure that my first word ends in ing, hanging by his ears. And what do I need to end that fronted adverbial? I'm now going to split the front adverbial from the main clause. I need a comma. Oops, drawing a comma. Hanging by his ears. What is he doing? What can I see? Edward stared at the night sky. So I'm going to double check, also punctuation at the end, I'm going to double check my 2 action words, my 2 verbs, hanging and stared. They're not too similar. Nope, they have different meanings. And does my fronted adverbial tell me how the next bit is happening? Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So your job now is to pause the screen and go away and write 8 sentences, because you're going to have 2 for each picture. 2 sentences about Edward hanging on a cross, 2 sentences about Nellie and Lawrence holding up Edward, 2 sentences about Edward falling from the ship, and 2 sentences about Edward and Bull sitting by the campfire, please. Once you've written those sentences, come back and press play to see what you need to do to finish the lesson. Okay. Thank you so much for writing your sentences. Please take a photo and upload them onto Seesaw so that your teacher can give you some feedback and see your fantastic writing. I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. I look forward to reading your sentences using fronted adverbials that have 2 verbs that describe what is happening in your writing next week. Hope you enjoy your day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.